Tyler Reddick confirms that he'll be returning to Rich Schultz Racing in 2023. And it looks like Daniil Kvyat has been approved by NASCAR and might be running some road course races with Team Hagesburg later this season. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to the video. We've got quite a few NASCAR and other motorsports stories discussed here today on the channel. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into those really quickly. We're going to start with paint schemes and sponsorship news first. Let's jump those really quickly. We've only got one paint scheme, though, to look at, and it's Stephen Malazzi's 2022 Comcraft scheme that we're going to see in the Truck Series race this weekend at Mid-Ohio. Of course, Stephen Malazzi will be making his NASCAR Camp with Truck Series debut this weekend, the 43 truck for Aric Brothers Racing. Honestly, the paint scheme's decent. It's not fantastic, but I think the paint scheme's decent enough, and it'll be definitely easy to spot on the racetrack this weekend. Hopefully, he's able to make the field if enough cars can make the show. Hopefully, Stephen Malazzi has a good run this weekend with Rayon. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Childress. After Tyler Reddick won the Cup Series race yesterday, Adam Stern reports that Childress will be giving away free chicken tenders as a promotion to celebrate Tyler Reddick's first Cup win. I'm not sure how long this promotion is going to be going through. I'm assuming it's probably at least be going through this week. I'm not entirely sure. But I'm really excited to see that Childress is doing this promotion to giving away free chicken tenders. I think it's a really awesome promotion. I love the sponsor doing this, especially with this being a major win for Tyler Reddick and a major for Childress, because this is their first ever win in the Cup Series, if I'm not mistaken, as a company. So that's really awesome to see. Never been to Childress before, but I definitely have to try some of that. And honestly, I think it's incredible that Childress has definitely done this. I think this is a really awesome promotion. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about cautions from this past weekend. So, of course, the Cup Series race just took place yesterday at Road America, and there were actually no natural cautions at Road America. I believe that is only the second or third time that we've had races with not having natural cautions in the last couple years. I mean, we really haven't had any natural races with no natural cautions at all. So we only had 2 yellows yesterday, and that of course was for the stage rigs. And I think it's one, you have a lot more talent in the series this year, but I also think this car, at least on the road course, has produced as much good racing as the other series had. I'm not saying the race was bad by any stretch of the imagination, but it could have definitely been a little bit better. That being said, though, it's kind of surprising because last year I think we had 2 or 3 yellows for natural yellows, and I thought we were going to get some cautions late, especially with Bubba Wallace having issues late and Austin Dillon having issues late, but luckily those guys really kind of saved this race of having yellows, and that's the situation with cautions. I mean, kind of shocking. There were not a lot of cautions in this race, and shocking there weren't any cautions. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Voyager. Now, if you've been following the story around Voyager, we all thought that they at this point had filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Well, that is not the case currently at the moment. However, Voyager right now, as we speak, is not really in a good position right now. There's been a lot of tweets that have been coming out about Voyager when it comes to investments and stuff. Now, the reason we're talking about Voyager is because Voyager is Landon Castle's sponsor. And if Landon Castle does lose Voyager as a sponsor, what does happen? Does Landon Castle lose his ride in the 10 car with College Racing, or does this mean that he gets to keep the ride and he has the money? I would assume Landon Castle, if he does lose a Voyager sponsorship, if it does end up dropping, it hasn't completely dropped at this point, but if he does lose a Voyager sponsorship, it would not shock or surprise me if he does potentially lose his ride, but also I think he probably will finish the season as well. I mean, you've only got 4 months left in the season, and I think he's got already the funding sent to College Racing, but it's a shame that Voyager potentially could be dropping because Landon Castle really has never had a big opportunity, and Landon Castle, well, he's not been fantastic this year. He's had a solid year. I also think College Racing isn't as good of a team this year as they were last year. That being said, though, if Voyager can get their situation sorted out, I don't want to see Landon Castle lose his ride. Landon has deserved this opportunity for such a long time. I hope that they're able to find a way to fix this problem, because if they are not able to fix this, I think this could be a major problem for Landon Castle going forward in the long term. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Charles Daniil. As it was revealed on Saturday evening that Charles Daniil is going to start crew chiefing for Derek Kraus starting this weekend at Mid-Ohio. Shane Huffman has been the crew chief for Derek Kraus for a while, but it looks like Charles Daniil will be crew chief pretty much for the rest of the season, or it could just be Mid-Ohio because, of course, Shane Wilson, or Shane Huffman, whoever his name is basically out for a little bit. There's Shane Wilson, excuse me. He's going to be out, I think, at least for this upcoming weekend in Mid-Ohio, and I think Charles Daniil has replaced him. Charles Daniil actually was Grant Enfinger's crew chief, and, of course, Grant Enfinger will now be having Jeff Hensley for the rest of the season, and, of course, that means Charles Daniil is going to a GMS Alliance team, because, remember, year, Bill McAnally's team is basically aligned with GMS. So it makes a lot of sense why Charles is going to this team. Charles actually had a decent year as a crew chief. He's not been fantastic, but he's had a decent year as a crew chief, and I think Derek Kraus could use a new face up on the crew chief box, even though I will say Shane Wilson's done a good job being the crew chief for Derek Kraus this season. Hopefully they're able to have a really strong run. Hopefully Charles and I can help Derek Kraus try to contend for the playoffs, because I think at this point Derek Kraus almost is in a must-win situation. I think he made up some points in ground the championship in Nashville, but I think this week in Mid-Ohio, if he's not within a certain amount of points, I don't see him getting out there winning. I think he's going to need to win a race because he's so many points back, even though I do expect this weekend to be crazy at the road course. So hopefully Charles and I can do a really, really good job and do good enough to basically help out him go to victory lane. Hopefully, he's able to get that done here and hopefully has a good run. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about RFK Racing. As RFK Racing announced that they are going to go ahead and appeal the penalty that they received from Nashville for Chris Buescher. Of course, Chris Buescher's crew chief, who is Scott Grace, is expected to be suspended for 4 races, but of course they've appealed the penalty. The big reason why they appealed the penalty is so they can be here for this weekend. Makes a ton of sense. Chris Buescher's really, really been good on the road course, the last couple of road courses especially. Just got a really strong top 10 finish, and they want to be there for that race, so that's why they've gone to appeal the penalty. Now, I do expect that they're more than likely going to lose the appeal. Everyone that's tried to appeal the penalty so far, they have lost. And I think that they're already preparing that they're probably going to end up losing the appeal, which could be unfortunate because look at Chris Buescher. Chris Buescher still, while he's a lot of points back right now, Chris Buescher still has a mathematical chance, at least as of now, to potentially get in all points. But again, he still has to make up a lot of ground. And we're going to another race where I feel like you're going to be significantly needing your crew chief to be there. I really hope that they can, I'd like to see him win the appeal, don't get me wrong. I still believe that the 4 race suspensions are a little bit overboard. Yes, I do agree that there needs to be some penalties for you losing a tire. I think I agree with some people on that. But at the same token, at the same time, I do believe that NASCAR should have at least reduced penalties, at least for the start of the year. But I understand why NASCAR has these penalties. I think the penalties make somewhat sense, at least somewhat, but I do think 4 races is too much. I think it should be reduced to 2 races instead of 4 races. But in all honesty, that's just my opinion on that, and I personally think it should be reduced from 4 races to 2 races, in my honest opinion. And now we'll go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Justin Marks. As very recently, Justin Marks has been getting back behind the wheel of race cars recently. And it was announced on Friday before he was announced he'd be racing in the Trans Am race that Justin Marks is going to drive the 41 for Nice Motorsports this weekend at Mid-Ohio. This has been rumored for the last couple weeks. We talked about this on the channel. That Cody Efall was on David Siegel's channel, and he said that a current Cup Series owner was going to be driving one of their trucks. And it made a ton of sense to be Justin Marks because Trackhouse Racing has somewhat of an alliance with Nice Motorsports. We've seen Ross Chastain drive the 41 truck in the past, and also Daniel Suarez drove the 42 truck. And the big reason is because Worldwide Express, which is a sponsor for both teams, they have a connection with each other. So that's why we've basically been seeing more of the Trackhouse group together. And I believe Justin Marks, the last time he raced in the Truck Series was around 2018 or 2019. In fact, this will be his first Truck Series start since 2018. What do I think a realistic chance of Justin Marks winning? Honestly, I think Justin Marks should be happy he's there. I think it's great that he's back behind the wheel. But I also think if this truck could be up front near the end of the race, I think he's got a shot. I think he's going to be somewhere in between of what Ross Chastain has done in that truck and what Tyler Carpenter did in Knoxville. I don't expect Justin Marks to win, but I think he'll be somewhat of a contender. I would actually be really happy if he did win the race. But in all honesty, I think a top 5 or top 10 would be really, really good for this truck. Hopefully he can be there, also be a good guidance for Carson Osavar as well, because Carson having Justin there is really going to help him when it comes to how good he is on road courses or not on road courses, even though I think Carson Osavar has been really, really strong on the road courses. And in all honesty, in all seriousness, I'm happy to see that Justin Marks is getting back behind the wheel this weekend in Mid-Ohio. Really awesome to see for sure, and happy to see that he is back behind the wheel of the 41 truck. And now we'll go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're going to talk about Logan Sargeant. Logan Sargeant, I believe, made history this past weekend as he actually won the Formula 2 race at Silverstone yesterday morning. I believe he is the first ever American winner in Formula 2. This is absolutely huge for Formula 2. I'm not just a big fan of Logan Sargeant because he is American, but also I'm a massive fan of Logan Sargeant because Logan Sargeant, I think, is an extremely talented and a really well-respected driver. He's a driver who's had a lot of bad breaks in Formula 2 and Formula 3. He won quite a few races in Formula 3 coming up for the Prema Racing organization, which is like the biggest team in Formula 3. But I think Logan Sargeant has so much potential. A lot of people really regarding this guy as the next great American Formula 1 driver. Sure, you have Colin Herta, who's waiting in the wings to potentially come over to Formula 1, which is definitely a big possibility that really could happen. But I think Logan Sargeant has so much potential to really be a big star in this series, and I think he's got so much potential to get things done. And to see him win yesterday, again, I believe he is the first Formula 2 winner that is from the United States. Huge congratulations, Logan Sargeant. Well deserved to see it. And finally winning for Carlin Racing. There's a good chance he could be one of the guys that could be in the running to get one of the Formula 1 rides next year, even though I do think Oscar Piastri is in a little bit more of a better position when it comes to that. But in all seriousness, in all honesty, I'm so happy to see that Logan Sargeant won yesterday. Massive congratulations to him. Well-deserved victory, and now he is a winner in the series. Congratulations to Logan Sargeant. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about the IndyCar race from Mid-Ohio. Now, before the Cup Series race took place, you had the Mid-Ohio IndyCar race. This race had a lot of caution, and a lot of people were not expecting this race to be a caution-fested race. But there were a lot of yellows. I think there were 4 or 5 yellows in this race. Basically, he had a couple electrical issues. Felix Rosenquist, he basically fell the race due to basically, I think, fuel pressure issues. We saw Tatiana Calderon. She stopped on the track and basically brought the yellow out. Pat O'Ward, who was actually won the pole and dominated the early portion of the race, he started having fuel pressure issues as well, and it was really not getting any better, and it seemed like the maps were in electrical issues were coming up. But it would actually be Scott McLaughlin, who was second place behind Pat O'Ward early. He would actually basically hold off a really hard charging Alex Blow and pick up his second career IndyCar victory. Scott McLaughlin's been really inconsistent this year, and to see him finally get back to victory lane after he had a couple really good races start off the year, but ever since he's been inconsistent. But I think Scott McLaughlin really starting to get back on it. He's been really, really strong at points this year, and he still mathematically has got a shot to win the championship. So I'm really happy to see he was able to win the race in Mid-Ohio. He's really, I think, getting it. I thought Joseph Newgarden was going to be the penalty car that was going to win, but he had a really solid run. So he made up a little bit of ground in the championship, but not a lot in the championship. But really awesome to see Scott McLaughlin, in all seriousness, going to victory lane. And congratulations, Scott McLaughlin, on winning the IndyCar race at Mid-Ohio. And now we'll go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about the British Grand Prix. Now, on Sunday morning, we had the British Grand Prix. Before we get into talking about the winner, we got to talk about the major wreck on lap 1 of the race. Now, of course, on the first lap of the race, there was a massive, massive accident. George Russell tried to make a dive move to the inside, tried to be a little bit aggressive. We saw Nicholas Latifi try to send it 3 wide. Also, Pierre Gasly tried to send it 3 wide. And George Russell, unfortunately, clipped into Zhou Guanyu. Massive, massive accident. Or basically, Guanyu was basically on his lid and basically slid across and flipped up and basically crashed into the barriers. Now, luckily for Zhou, he's actually okay. Luckily, he was medically clear, but that accident was extremely scary. That could have been very, very dangerous. And luckily, we have the Halo system now in Formula 1 that really can protect these drivers, because that was a very, very horrendous accident. Luckily, he was okay and able to walk away. That was a massive wreck. But after all that happened, after about an hour-long red flag, we saw a very, very competitive race. It really came down to 3 drivers. Came down to Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz, and Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton has now been fast all year, was trying to charge up there. The race had changed, though, around 10 laps ago when Esteban Ocon was slow on the racetrack, and this was set up for a really, really strong run. Leclerc was on old hard tires, and Charles Sainz was on softs, along with Lewis Hamilton. We saw a really strong battle for second place between Leclerc, Hamilton, and Sergio Perez, who all battled really, really hard in those last couple of laps. I think that's one of the best races I have ever seen. And after so much heartbreak and 150 starts in Formula 1, Carlos Sainz is finally a winner in Formula 1. Massive congratulations, well-deserved. The win's been coming for Carlos Sainz for a very, very long time. The guy's been really strong the last couple weeks. Probably had a better car than Max 7 at the end of the Canadian GP. But at some point, sometimes you're just going to have bad luck and bad breaks that really are going to take you out of contention. But at the same token and same time, I'm so happy to see Carlos Sainz finally win. That guy absolutely deserves it. And finally, he is a winner in Formula 1. And I think more wins are to come for Carlos Sainz down the road, and as he tries to get back into the championship hunt. And now we're going ahead and jump to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Kyle Larson and Ty Gibbs. Now, this is a very, very good thing to talk about because Kyle Larson showed a lot of class and respect to Ty Gibbs. Talk about Ty Gibbs raced him clean, and Larson said he was not going to move Ty Gibbs because Kyle Larson got raced really, really clean and really respectfully. And he said that Ty Gibbs just outsmarted him and beat him and gave him a lot of respect. When you have a guy like Kyle Larson giving a guy like Ty Gibbs a lot of respect, you know that that is huge. Kyle Larson, of course, the defending NASCAR Cup Series champion, arguably the best driver in the racing world, arguably the best in the world, and arguably the best in the United States. When you have a guy like Kyle Larson giving you respect, you know you're doing something really, really good. And Ty Gibbs said in the post-race media as well that he's trying to change the way he races people. You saw what Ty Gibbs could have done. He could have sent Kyle Larson off the track. He didn't. And I think what we're seeing now is I think Ty Gibbs realizes is he's got to start racing these drivers with a lot more respect and a lot more cleaner. If he doesn't start racing these guys cleaner, he's going to get raced really, really ridiculously. And I think what Ty Gibbs has started to finally realize is I think I got to start racing better around these drivers, because especially if I'm going to get in the Cup Series down the road and in the future, I really got to start racing these drivers a lot better. So I love the way Ty Gibbs races. And again, that's why I love Ty Gibbs. And if he raced like that all the time, Ty Gibbs would have a lot of respect. And I think some people were upset that Ty Gibbs won. But he's also beat Kyle Larson. He just outbraked Kyle Larson and beat him straight up. And that's all you can ask for. And he didn't race Kyle Larson dirty like he's raced other people. He raced him really, really clean and very respectfully. And that's how you're going to contend for a championship and get the respect back. If you race Kyle Larson back, and if Kyle Larson gives you props, people are going to see that and start showing you respect. And I'm a big fan of Ty Gibbs and a big fan of Kyle Larson. So I really didn't have a battle at the end of the day. But I want to see Ty Gibbs continue to race like this, because if he continues to race like this, I do believe that he will have so much potential to be extremely successful in racing going forward. Hopefully he continues to race like this, because he raced Kyle Larson respectfully, and that's all I ask from Ty Gibbs going forward. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Aric Almirola. Now, Aric Almirola was basically asked about if he would reconsider returning to Stewart-Haas Racing for 2023, because currently at the moment the 10 car is not had a guy re-sign. Aric Almirola says he plans to retire after 2022, but it's unconfirmed at this point who's going to take over the 10 car. A lot of people expect to be Ryan Preece. Again, Bob Poggers asked Aric Almirola about that. He says he has not reconsidered as of right now returning to the 10 car in 2023. He hasn't even focused on thinking about returning or not in 2023, and he's really focused on right now making the playoffs. Now, Aric Almirola, with him not finishing great, Tyler Reddick winning the Cup Series race yesterday, Aric Almirola pretty much at this point is going to need a winner race. We're going to some tracks where I think he could be a contender, but he hasn't been consistent enough right now, as of now, to probably be able to go out there and make the playoffs unless he goes out there and wins a race. Now, Aric Almirola ultimately, do I think he wants to come back? I really don't think so. I don't see Aric Almirola coming back in 2023, at least on a full-time basis. Now, that being said, I could see Aric Almirola definitely coming back at least on a part-time basis. Maybe like Stewart-Haas race, like an Alliance, Stewart-Haas Alliance team like Rick Ware Racing. He can come back on a part-time basis, because Aric Almirola is actually this year, compared to last year, Aric Almirola has definitely been a lot better of a driver and a lot more consistent of a driver, which is one thing I've really been wanting to see from Aric Almirola, is a lot more consistency, because I think Aric Almirola is a really, really good driver. But he's been needing to have a lot of good runs, and it's good to see that Aric Almirola has been having a decent year and a very solid year. There's a lot of guys in their last years, they generally don't do as good. So, do I think he comes back, though? Honestly, I don't think so. I don't see Aric Almirola come back to the 10 car. I expect that it will go to somebody else, like a Ryan Preece, or even Kyle Busch. If he doesn't return to Joe Gibbs Racing, though, I anticipate that Kyle Busch is probably going to return to Joe Gibbs Racing in 2022, but anything's possible at this point. But I expect Aric Almirola, he will not return in 2023, which I think, at least on a full-time basis, but he could return on a part-time basis for the team. We're just still going to have to wait and see what happens in regards to that. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Bubba Wallace and Denny Hamlin. Now, we already discussed this on the channel earlier this week, but Bubba Wallace, during the NASCAR Cup Series race at Nashville last week, was very, very livid and very, very angry on the radio, basically saying, "You mother effers," said a lot of really colorful language, and told Booty Barker during it, basically said, "Don't talk to me, dude." And Booty Barker tried to coach on him and said, "I'm really not going to talk to you, but I'm going to leave you alone, but I'm telling you, I understand your frustration. We're going to work together to get back up there." Now, Bubba Wallace was able to get back up to 12th place due to strategy, but it just was another race where Bubba Wallace is frustrated. Now, Bubba Wallace was asked about these radio comments and basically talked about his frustration on the radio said he's just got to work on his mentality. And I said, basically, it's just me being frustrated. I want to go out there and win races and really prove something. Now, Denny Hamlin did actually respond to this and basically said that you cannot embarrass a race team on the radio and get really upset with your race team. Now, here's what I want to say to Denny Hamlin. If you gave him better pit crew, he probably wouldn't get mad on the radio. This year, Bubba Wallace has had 7 loose wheels, multiple over-the-wall too soon penalties, and a bunch of wrecks that really haven't even been his fault. If you gave him a better pit crew this year, he probably wouldn't be as bad on the pit road. And let's not forget, Denny, that this season, you have had 26 or 27 penalties on pit road, which is more than anybody else. I knew you had a lot of penalties, but you've had a lot, so I would be mad too if I've had 26 or 27, but hey, I've seen you get mad at your pit crew before and get mad at the mistakes they're making, and another thing I want to get into what some of the guys on the broadcast, like Steve Letarte and Jeff Burton. I think those guys have done a really good job on the TV side of things. But they were criticizing Bubba for getting mad on the radio. Bubba would not be mad on the radio if you guys got your crap together on pit road. Get your team together. Get your team in order on pit road. But I don't know if it's something that they can fix for the big end of this year. In fact, I think it's something we're going to have to wait until next year, unfortunately, because we've heard through the grapevine that there's been an issue when it comes to the supply chain of parts right now. And I just don't know what they can do. Honestly, I feel terrible for Bubba Wallace here, and I understand him being upset on the radio. But I do think, hopefully, Bubba does calm down. And Bubba didn't have a great race regardless at Road America. Let's just be frank. That really was kind of his fault that he didn't have a good race. But at the same token, at the same time, I really hope and pray that Bubba's team can get it together when it comes to pit road. They did gain a spot on pit road. I will say that at Road America, they did gain a spot on pit road. So at least there's a positive right there. Maybe Bubba Wallace and his team can finally start getting it together, and Bubba can start finishing better, because Bubba should have had a lot of top 10s this year. And in a lot of all seriousness, I really hope and pray that this team can turn around and fix it for Bubba Wallace going forward. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Road America. Now, Bob Pockrass tried to get an interview with Ben Kennedy and talk to him, because Bob Pockrass asked a lot of questions about the future of Road America when he's at the track. Ben Kennedy basically said he had offered no hits in regards to Road America for 2023, basically reiterating that the schedule is expected to be finalized by sometime in August, in the middle of August, late July, early August, is when the schedule is expected to be finalized. So by next month, we're more than likely going to know if Road America is going to be coming back on the schedule or not. One of the biggest reasons why we're talking about the future of Road America currently at the moment is because right now, as we speak at this time, the future of Road America is definitely in question. There's a major rumor going around that the Chicago Street Course is going to replace Road America on the schedule. And there's also a rumor that Chicagoland might be replacing one of the Kansas races, but there's a big rumor going around that Road America is probably going to lose their date to a Chicago Street Course. And I really want to talk about this. Yes, did I think the race yesterday was really, really good? And did racing help the future? No. But here's the thing. The attendance yesterday. I heard the attendance at the track was really, really strong. I'm not sure as strong as last year's race, but I know that the attendance yesterday was still really, really strong from people I've heard at the racetrack. And it just had a great attendance. However, probably close to 100,000 people were at the racetrack. You have one of the largest attended races of the year, and you're going to get rid of one of your most popular tracks up there for a Chicago Street Course race that more than likely is not going to last long, especially when it comes to the Chicago Garbage. And in all honesty, in all seriousness, Chicago's not the racetrack I'd like to see get a street course race. You know what track that would really work for street course racing if you really want your street course race to keep Road America on the schedule? There's a perfect track in California called Long Beach. Now, I'm not sure if the race would be great, but Long Beach is the perfect circuit. There's a reason why Long Beach has lasted longer than pretty much any other street course on the schedule. It's because Long Beach works. Long Beach produces solid racing, and I think Long Beach would be generally a better racetrack for street course racing than Chicago. I understand that NASCAR is trying to get up in Chicago to race in Chicago to get that market. They're trying to get into that market, but it also seems like a little bit of desperation as well when it comes to the upcoming TV deal, which really is a big reason why I think they're trying to make this move. I really do hope they find a way to keep Road America on the schedule for 2023, because I don't want to see Road America gone. That is the one road course that should not go off the schedule. There's other road courses. Any road course one, it comes to mind for me that probably should be off the schedule. There's just so many other road courses that just need to get off the schedule. Sonoma's another one that I'd like to see. And hey, you can replace Long Beach with Sonoma with Long Beach. There's your road course right there. And honestly, Sonoma's attendance was just absolutely horrendous and was not that great either. So Ultimately, I just hope that they find a way to keep it on the schedule, get rid of some of these other road course tracks if you need to, and hopefully Road America does stay on the schedule. I know the race wasn't fantastic, but at the same token, at the same time, I'd rather have a race at Road America and a decent race at Road America than a race at Chicago Street Course and in the Chicago area, in my honest opinion. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Noah Gragson versus Sage Karam. Now, if you're watching NASCAR Xfinity Series race, you probably saw one of the most dirtiest and bladest things I have probably seen in a very, very long time at a road course nonetheless. So, there was a really hard battle going on between Noah Gragson and Sage Karam. I believe this was around for 7th or 8th position, and Gragson was getting really raced hard by Sage Karam. Sage Karam might have forced Noah Gragson off the track. It's unclear, but Noah Gragson, you know what he decides to do? Gragson gets really, really mad at Sage Karam and basically decides to turn it right down the straightaway and basically decides to go ahead and wreck Sage Karam. Now, Noah Gragson was able to continue on from the wreck, but this causes a massive, massive accident. And Sage Karam, again, was not very happy about it, but it causes a 12 or 13 car incident. And not only that, a driver almost got really, really hurt. Brandon Brown got hurt and basically got hit in the no-no area, the area that I don't want to talk about, but got hit in the you-know-what area, basically, and was really, really, really upset. Hurt. My center basically got him quicker than AMR safety team. I think they need to be a little bit quicker than that, but again, Maya says that they got there as quick as they could, so I can trust a guy like Maya Center who was at the racetrack. He got there as quick as they could. Sage Karam did not hold back on Noah Gragson after. He basically called him out, basically said that no other way, for everything he's heard about the way Noah races, he has not shown a lot of respect out there. He doesn't have a lot of respect for Noah Gragson. Basically said that no other way he's raced is just absolutely really, really bad, and basically should not be racing like that because he will not get him respect. Noah Gragson did later basically come out and basically said that I take responsibility, but he really did not apologize, and Jeff Byrne called him out on the broadcast, by the way, which I find really, really funny. Now, NASCAR after basically said they spoke to Gragson, basically make sure Noah Gragson doesn't do anything like that, but NASCAR did not actually penalize Noah Gragson for this move. They actually let him basically finish the race where he ran. Now, I want to talk about this move a little bit because this is something I'm wanting to say. Noah Gragson, generally this year, I feel like he's been a lot better of a driver than he's been in the past. This is really one of the first egregious incidents I think we've seen for Noah Gragson. And Noah Gragson's been in this series long enough to know that he should know better not to make moves like this. And I love Noah Gragson. I think Noah Gragson is an extremely talented driver who's got potential to be in the Cup Series. But I honestly think after this move, he shouldn't move up the Cup next year. I think the move was absolutely egregious. I thought it was a really, really low and a BS move in my honest opinion. I thought that the move was ridiculous. I understand you're upset and you got raced hard. But you don't wreck somebody down the straightaway at over 160, 170 miles an hour. You can't just wreck somebody because you're upset. You're better than that. You've been in this series long enough, Noah, to know this. And again, I like Noah Gragson a lot. I'm not trying to sound like I hate Noah Gragson. I like Noah Gragson a lot. But if you race somebody like this all the time, guess what? If you race somebody like you get wrecked, you're going to get a lot of criticism. And a lot of drivers saw what Noah did, and they were not happy with him. Brandon Brown was not happy with you. I know Landon Castle didn't really show a lot of respect to you. It's just, you got to race better. Noah should know better than that. He's been in series long enough to know that you don't just wreck somebody down the straightaway. It's just unexcusable for Noah Gragson. He's been in series long enough to know this. He's done much better this year. I thought Noah had grown up from this, but again, he showed it. Ty Gibbs showed more maturity in this race than Noah Gragson. I had not been really saying that, but Gragson absolutely should know better. And if he wants to win a championship this year, you can't do this kind of stuff. You can't race drivers like this all the time. And I know Noah has had points where he's been raced really hard by people and probably lost his cool. But Noah should just go talking to drivers after the race. Don't wreck somebody down the straightaway and then show what kind of person you are. That's just ridiculous. And I think Noah Gragson definitely deserves a criticism from a lot of people, including the drivers, for this. Because it was a ridiculous move, unacceptable move, in my honest opinion. And he deserves a lot of criticism for what he did. And I hope Noah Gragson realized that he made a mistake. It was uncalled for and absolutely just pathetic and stupid. It was just a dumb move and one of the dumbest moves I've seen this year. That was really, really blatant, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to jump on to the first of two major stories in today's episode, as we're talking about Daniil Kvyat. Daniil Kvyat was at Road America this weekend in the Team Haysburg's pit box, and he had an interview with Bob Pockrass, and he confirmed to Bob Pockrass that he's been approved by NASCAR and is hopes to race with Team Haysburg's later this season. We're seeing a major open wheel invasion. Now, to give a backstory on Daniil Kvyat, Danny Kvyat's been lurking around NASCAR really for about the last year or so. Danny Kvyat was actually at Barnesville with Stuart Haas Racing, trying to get a little bit of knowledge for that. Now, Danny Kvyat also, for those who don't know, has competed in Formula One. He has failed to win any races in Formula One, but was really solid there, and raced with basically teams like Red Bull and Toro Rosso there for a couple of years, but lost his right, I believe, to Yuki Tsunoda, I think, after the 2020 season. Of course, I believe he lost it right after 2020, and he's been still searching for a way to race. Now, Danny Kvyat, of course, a little bit older of a driver, also comes from Russia. Danny Kvyat, I'm really happy to see he's looking to have some opportunities to race in NASCAR. And like I mentioned, we're seeing a major open wheel invasion in NASCAR. There's a lot of drivers from open wheel that are coming through. You've got Kimi Räikkönen, who's going to be driving for Trackhouse in the 91 car for them later this year in August. We're also going to basically be seeing, I believe we're also going to Julio Castroneves, who's looking to come back to NASCAR as well. Sage Karam's currently racing in the Xfinity Series with Alpha Prime Racing. And also there's a lot of other drivers looking to come in. I know that Scott McLaughlin has shown interest in the past. There's such a major open wheel invasion that's currently happening at the moment right now, and I think a lot of that is because, one, drivers that have a lot of that road course experience are really coming into play, and I think a lot of teams are looking at some of these IndyCar drivers to come back in as well. But I also think it's amazing to see that Danny Kvyat's coming in because it's great for international presence as well. Danny Kvyat's got an amazing international presence. A lot of Formula One fans know who Danny Kvyat is, and he can bring a lot of that Formula One fan base as well in. Now, what race do I think he'll race in? I would assume that he more than likely will race potentially at the Indianapolis road course for Team Haysbers. I know that they were supposed to have Jacques Villeneuve drive this car for at least a couple more races than initially thought, and I know Team Haysbers only run like 3 or 4 races so far this year, so they've only made, I think, 2 or 3 starts. But it's good to see at least they're trying to get more guys in there. Hopefully, we see Danny Kvyat not just race at road courses this year. Hopefully, maybe we see Danny Kvyat racing some ovals. I like to see Danny Kvyat try out some other forms of other types, not just road course races. Team Haysbers, hopefully they just run more than just road course races. I just want to see this team succeed and get better, and I think a guy like Danny Kvyat really has potential. Now, ultimately, how many races do I think he runs? I think he's only going to run maybe like 1 or 2 races this year, but I would think he potentially could run more in 2023. And ultimately, kind of discussing this as well, how many races do I think Team Haysbers is going to run? I think they're going to run more races in 2023, and I think they'll have somewhat of a similar rotation. Have guys like Jacques Villeneuve, Larice Hasemans, and probably a guy like Danny Kvyat get behind the wheel. But I love that we're starting to see, once again, a major open wheel invasion. It's been a long time since we've had such a major open wheel invasion. Of course, the last time we really had an open wheel invasion was back in 2007, 2008, when guys like Juan Montoya, Danica Patrick, Dario Franchitti, a lot of people from that group really came over to try out NASCAR. Really, the only one to kind of pan out for that, of course, was Juan Montoya. Danica really struggled, and of course, Dario Franchitti didn't even finish the whole entire season in NASCAR, and also Patrick Carpentier. He really didn't do much IndyCar either, and NASCAR either. He did go to IndyCar and Champ Car, but never really did anything in NASCAR. But in all seriousness, in all honesty, I love that we're starting to see a new open wheel invasion coming into the sport. I know Danny Ricciardo, he's shown interest as well. And we'll see what happens long term, but I really hope that Danny Kvyat drives for Team Haysbers and does drive this year. It would be really cool to have Kimi Räikkönen and Danny Kvyat race and walk Glenn Leary down the road. That might happen. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens, but happy to see that Danny Kvyat hasn't approved, and he might be racing in NASCAR here in the near future. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the final major story of today's episode, as we're talking about Tyler Reddick. This has been expected for a while, but Tyler Reddick confirmed to the media that Richards Racing has picked up his option. He is going to return to Richards Racing in 2023. He also says that he has started to talk to teams going into 2024, so right now he's focusing on 2024. Tyler Reddick currently drives the 8 car for Richards Racing, has been with Richards Racing since around 2019 season, going all the way back to the NASCAR Xfinity Series. Of course, picking up the championship there in 2019 for the team. 2020 was really impressive. Didn't win the Rookie of the Year, which I think was BS, because how the way they have the Rookie of the Year honors is kind of bogus in my opinion. You shouldn't be able to lock your way into the playoffs. If you have a win, you shouldn't automatically win the Rookie of the Year. It should be whoever's the best rookie, even if you do make the playoffs. It should be the best rookie overall, and Cole Custer wasn't the best. Reddick was really impressive in his rookie year. Then in 2021, he really improved as a sophomore, had a really major sophomore gains. He really had a lot of top 5s and top 10s that year. And then in 2022, he's been so close to winning so many times. And finally, this past weekend, picked up the victory. I think what's really holding Tyler Reddick back, though, right now, and I think this is what holding back, is Richards Racing, the team itself. I think Garstar this year has really shown some gains this year compared to previous years. In fact, I think they're better than they were last year generally. But I think Reddick is a lot better than the equipment that he's currently in. I think he's in a very similar situation and position that a guy like Kyle Larson was before he went over to Hendrick. Remember, Kyle Larson, when he started his career in the Cup Series, he basically drove for Chip Ganassi Racing for about 6 or 7 years and really had a lot of potential. I don't think Reddick's at that level yet, but he's getting close to that level of where Kyle Larson was. And they both come from similar backgrounds as well. Kyle Larson, in his third year, though, did pick up 3 or 4 victories, so he's really going to have to start really showing he's capable of. This is technically his third year in the Cup Series, and now he's a winner, very similar to Kyle Larson. So I think the floodgates are going to start opening up for Tyler Reddick here in the Rich Schultz Racing camp. Now, my big question is, what does Tyler Reddick do after 2023, and where team does he go to 2024? Because 2024 is probably going to be a lot of teams open up for grabs. I think you're going to see a lot of retirements. I think Kurt Busch retires. Does he go over to 25 or 23-11? Is Kevin Harvick's going to retire? Does he go to Stewart-Haas Racing? Does he potentially, maybe, just maybe, go over to Hendrick Motorsports if Alex Bowman doesn't return? That's one thing we're generally going to have to watch. But I think Reddick really is kind of getting held back right now. I think Reddick has so much potential to win a championship. I think he's really one of the best raw talents out there and really has worked hard. And I think he's got so much potential to really exceed in sport long term. But again, I think he needs to generally go to a better team to be able to succeed. But I am really happy he's come back to Rich Schultz Racing because he has made Rich Schultz Racing relevant. Before he came to the team in 2020, RCR was falling off a cliff. Austin Dillon finished like 24th or 25th in points that year, and Daniil Kvyat barely finished in the top 30. And I think, I no disrespect Daniil Kvyat, but I think Reddick taking over for Daniil Kvyat in 2020 was really the right move, and he's made that organization a lot better and really has helped the development of the next-gen car as well. Now, ultimately, I think going into 2023, I think that he is going to build on what he's done in 2022, already winning this year, of course. I think he will be an underdog to win the championship next year. I really think he will, because I think next year he's going to have a similar season to Kyle Larson, I think, in 2017. I think he's going to win 2 or 3 races at least next year. If he doesn't win more this year, I think he's going to win a lot of races next year. I think he's going to be a contender. And I am just so happy that Reddick is coming back. And I think the win yesterday at Road America really proved right. Tyler Reddick absolutely deserves to be here. He's such a great driver, has so much skill. And again, I'm just so happy that Reddick's coming back next year. He deserves to be back at Rich Schultz Racing. He's proven himself. But at the same token, I do want to see Reddick in a better organization going forward. I hope he does go to a better team long term, whether it is with Joe Gibbs Racing if one of their cars opens up in 2024, whether it's with another team, who really knows at this point. But generally, like I mentioned, I'm really happy that Tyler Reddick is coming back to Rich Schultz Racing. He's made the team a lot better, and he definitely deserves to be there. Congratulations to Tyler Reddick on getting the opportunity to return to Rich Schultz Racing in 2023. So anyway, that is going to be it for today's NASCAR and Motorsports video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notifications to be notified when a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on pages on the list schedules below that, and comment your thoughts on today's video. Are you excited Tyler Reddick is returning to Rich Schultz Racing for next year or not? Let me know in the comments below. And what are your thoughts about all the other stories discussed here today on the channel, including Daniil Kvyat potentially returning to basically making his NASCAR Cup Series debut? Let me know in the comments below. Tomorrow on my channel is going to be race picks on the channel. We'll be doing race picks for the upcoming race at Atlanta Motor Speedway as we start getting closer to the playoffs. Wednesday will probably be a NASCAR news video, and then Thursday I might have a special project dropping, but keep your notification tabs on as well. Also, happy 4th of July, everybody. Hope you all enjoy your day, shooting off some fireworks and stuff, and spending time with your families. Happy 4th of July. So anyway, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's video, and I'll see you guys next time for some more great, awesome NASCAR and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.